We've got sound now. I should be connected to my microphone now. Just let me know. I'm not sure if I've got any sound working. I can't hear myself, so I'm not sure. Just let me know in the comments below, guys, if you've got... Yeah, here we go. We're back. Sorry, guys. Don't know what happened there. I'm not sure whether it was my light that I had set up that was cutting out the power to a microphone, so maybe that's why I couldn't be heard. I was trying to put a bit of light on so you could actually see me a bit better. So loud and clear. At least we've got some loud and clearness. Hopefully that works a bit better. Alrighty, so I was just saying, obviously it was a top four side up against a bottom four side. I think we can all probably agree that Gold Coast probably had this one marked down for a revenge game to take us down, get a bit of payback, a bit of practice going as well. Probably wouldn't surprise me as well is the what's his name? The old coach, Damon Harwick had some plans that he would like to have tested out on us to try different things. So I think we all could probably say a little bit disappointed on how it went. I don't think because of Gold Coast. I think just the way we played, and obviously the scoring impact is another concern still. I know the last couple of weeks were good, but this is just probably put me back to where I was previously about how I was concerned about our scoring impact. The fact of we have a lot of issues with scoring, and obviously that was one. So as you can see, it was an 84-point loss. Not a great result. At least we did better than Port Adelaide did against Geelong. They kicked like 160-something plus points. Lost by 88, I think it was, and 90. But as you can see, 11 goals, 16 goals, 1,107 to 2 goals, 11. So that's probably going to be my starting point off the bat with you guys, will be the 2 goals, 11. Now, if we had the discussion of if this was switched around, if it was 11 goals, 2, it's a totally different game we're playing. Would be a lot more happier with it. I need to look up the stats later on, but pretty sure we kicked way too many behinds as the players itself. So I don't know. That's something we need to practice on. I'm a little bit disappointed in the horrible kicking, and it seems to be a common occurrence every single week. Obviously, against West Coast and Essendon is just the win, so we're happy with the win. It kind of put a Band-Aid temporarily over some of the flaws because it was good to get a win. But this is starting to become a common occurrence where, in my opinion, we kick more behinds than we do goals. Now, obviously, we had no Tom Lynch, Tim Taranto, and Nathan Broad out. I think, in my opinion, that is a big factor for me on probably why we had such a bad game. I think Broad is probably... With Broad now, I think it shows you a lot more how much we actually do missing with him being the backline. I think 2 weeks in a row, no Tim Taranto in our midfield is showing some flaws as well. The midfield, obviously, we know needs to be improved. And then, obviously, if you think about our forward line, who's in our forward line that has played more than 50 games? I think Mansell is the closest player who's played 50 games, and that's not... No knock on Ryan Mansell. He's not a proper leader right now. He's not quite at the amount of games that we need him to be at. So, obviously, Gold Coast has a very experienced defence. Richmond has a very unexperienced forward line. Obviously, that didn't mesh too well. So, look, well, as Adam Uze did say in his press conference, that we didn't play at the AFL standard. But are we even as a team at the AFL standard? Because we're such a young team. I think it was something like 12 players under 20 games. So, close to half your side is played, less than a full season worth of games. We're going to have issues. So, but I think there was some positives out of the game. Obviously, there is some negatives. So there is the good, the bad, and the ugly. I would say the good, in my opinion... if everyone actually in your comments below put in what your good is, and we'll just go through the good, the bad, the ugly. The good for me was Harry Armstrong came back, kicked a goal, and got through the game without pulling up. Obviously, no reports of him being hurt. I really did enjoy that. It was good to have him back. It's good to see he actually has bulked up a lot more than I thought he would. Really impressed with the size he's put on with his time off. Maybe in the end for his career, it was a great thing for him. But obviously, and the bad for me would be that Jonty Fall went down. Now, from the reports, it's not an ACL injury, but it looks like it could be him out for the rest of the season. That's a bit of a stinger because Jonty was really starting to put a real good form in, presenting really well, playing really well, and that hurt watching him go down just because he started off struggling when he wouldn't kick his goals, but then you could see the last couple of weeks that the balls he was marking a lot better. His leading patterns were getting better, and he was kicking more goals every week. And that's that's all I really want is just to see some improvement from Jonty. And you guys can obviously leave in your comments below. That was the bad, for my opinion. That's my bad. That's what I think was bad for this week. Put in your good, bad, and ugly. I think the ugly would be the Toby Nankervis bump to the umpire. Not ugly as in it's Nank's fault. It's ugly of the whole entire situation behind that sort of thing. Now, I don't agree that Nank should get a fine or a sanction. I know that Xavier Maguire reckons that he's going to get a sanction. I would not be surprised if Richmond gets a 3-week suspension because they're trying to stamp it out, as they did with the pushing of the play into the contest with Ryan Mansell. No one's been suspended since, mostly just fines. But I think if you watch the video, I would have loved to have had that film, so we could have watched it and understood what really happened. But the fact that the umpire bounced it, which time the ball got to the peak, the umpire hadn't even moved yet, and then Nank hit him. So to me, is there going to be a stage where the umpires, there is some sort of accountability for the bloody umpires? Oh, okay, cool, Paul. Thank you, mate. So he's been cleared. Thank God, because I think we all could agree if Nank had been sanctioned or fined, anything like that, to me, the umpires needs to be fined because he bounced that ball and then just stayed there. Like, this is why I'm starting to become more of an advocate of throwing the ball up, just so the fact of that, the umpire could have thrown the ball up and walked out a lot faster. So yeah, and that's definitely how I was feeling as well when I just saw that. Phew. The idea of, I think if we just get rid of the ball, the bouncing it, because these umpires just can't bounce it anymore. If it was just thrown up, the umpire can just hit the pedal and get out backwards a lot faster. So definitely, I think that something needs to be. Holy moly, that's a horrible picture. Where that's not what I wanted. I wanted the other one. Definitely something that I think the AFL needs to look at into the season. A lot of the things that I also did see, obviously, I've done my good, bad, and ugly. So I need to make like a little sound for that. But I did see a lot of reports about the umpiring seemed to be kind of going one way, where we would do something, it wouldn't get called for a free kick, but then Gold Coast would do the exact same thing and it would be called. So apparently Morris Rowley a few times chased down tackles. I really think that the tackling in that whole atmosphere needs to be fixed. But the stand rule needs to go as well. I think we all can agree on that. So I've got some other stats here. We'll have to remove my banner because you now can't see everything. Alrighty, cool. All right, so this is just the stats off the AFL app. So I thought everyone could probably put in their top 5 for best on, who they think was best on. It's going to be hard to find. Probably 5 players that we think were best on. But if I was going to be picking a player that I think would be best on, in my opinion, I think Nick Lostone might be up there. Look, 20 disposals. He had 17 kicks, 4 handballs, 8 marks, 4 clearances. 4 tackles, 83% time on ground. I did appreciate a lot of the stuff that I had read and seen, that he really did look like he hadn't dropped the bar, considering how everybody else had played, where he had maintained that high standard of interceptions. Really, I think Nick should be getting his an All-Australian jacket. Everyone would have seen the thing out there with, what's his name from Geelong, who now has 5 All-Australians and Nick has none. But since the 5 he's got, Nick's been way better player. Sam Banks, I think he's growing every single week. 26 disposals. What's that? 5 marks, 3 tackles, 547 meters gained. It's 79% time on ground. Kind of would like to be on the ground a bit more, but the dashing speed, that cut back from the handballs, really starting to improve his game and consistency. I think now with Sam Banks, I think this was probably what we expect from Sam Banks every single week. This is what I expect his form to be. You know, he gets that above 20 plus disposals, and he's roughly, with his meters gained, he's sitting around that 400 plus, because it's really starting to be that role that Riola used to play. Bashahuli used to play off that halfback as well, that player that got the handball, elite kick, keeps the ball moving and gets it going, which I really did enjoy. Look, you guys just leave in your comments below who you think was best on. We can always talk about them, or you can give off a couple of questions as well if you want to. The link is in the comments below. You can also jump on and have a chat with me as well, and everybody else. I'm all for that as well. More than welcome to jump on with me. Jack Ross, yeah, it was. Now I have the questions about some of the midfield from everyone here. So I believe it was Jack Ross, Jacob Hopper, Dion Prestia, and Taj Houghton did most of the centre bounce attendance. I think it was Hopper, Prestia were both at 18, had been in 18 of them. Jack Ross was at 16. I believe Seth Campbell was at 6, and Taj Houghton was at 3. Taj had 2 clearances, and he's 3 at centre bounce attendings. Hopper had 1, I think it was centre clearances, I think it was, something like that. It was a really low number, and it was really concerning for the fact of that, you know, Taj had been there once, and it wasn't that great considering the other guys had been there so many different times. So what do you got here? It's only scoring 2 goals a tie game kills me. Yeah. I was saying that at the start before, it is a bit of a burner considering how we had played in the last couple of weeks, where we're scoring was quite high and the defense was a lot stronger. But I think the damn wall, from a lot what I've seen, was the defense just can't hold out forever, and that's the thing. The midfield has to balance that out, right? In my opinion, they've got to balance out that play from the midfield. But I think we could all probably turn and say, I really think that Taranto not being in our midfield the last 2 weeks has hurt us a lot more than we thought, because he does play that very important role, and then he also scores. So, you know, you're taking out a player that averages 20 to 30 disposals per game, goes forward and kicks a goal per game, which is what he's done the last couple of months. He's really lifted up his form with kicking goals as well. So that sucks. It really does suck. But look, with what they're saying here with the scoring, just remember, I think it was 2018. Richmond kicked 125 points, and Brisbane kicked 17. So that just goes to show you that, you know, we didn't kick the lowest score ever. But look what Brisbane were back then, and look where the Brisbane is now. You know, that they had such a low scoring game against us in our prime. We're going up against Gold Coast in their prime. We're not in our prime, so we're still growing. There's a lot to come off of the next coming years. But if Brisbane can get through it, they did, and to then look where they are now. They're a juggernaut in the AFL. So there, see, I remember that game, and like the biggest thing on that game was I just remember bloody Dylan Grimes spoiling the ball, getting up and then tackling the player and then getting the hole in the ball, and they just couldn't kick another goal. So this is where we are. I think we could probably say we're ahead of a lot of other clubs with where we are. But yeah, the scoring, I think, is something that we need to work off in the off season, which could be a bad or an ugly point of our season. But it's definitely something that we need to walk into next year and find a way to develop our forwards a lot more. And I'm not angry at our forwards. I think it's just the patterns that we lead the style, and then that also needs to be worked with the midfield with the entry as well. So there's needs to be more improvement coming off there as well. So yeah, you're right. I'd rather be us than a few teams. Look, I know North had a pretty good win. Didn't win this week. They showed some fines. They showed some good signs with Nick Lucky back in their team. That's a concern for me. I'm not a North Melbourne supporter, but I've pointed that is that their whole team was better when they had one player in, where we don't seem to be like that. We don't seem to be so Dusty centric. Like when we had Dustin Martin, a lot of times when we were struggling, if we didn't have Dusty, we didn't lift. But we got to a certain stage where we will develop that, and which we will eventually have that. I think in the coming years, we're going to be a lot better. I think we're ahead of Essendon. I know Essendon's a lot of injured players, but we're ahead of West Coast, North Melbourne. In my opinion, there's the two clubs below us. I think we're ahead of them in the rebuild. West, really, North Melbourne should be. They've had I think it's something like 16 players in the last 4 or 5 years that were in the first round picks. So they should have shown some sort of more development, which they haven't where we have. I think we are ahead of Essendon. Look, and we're going to be, the way it's going, we're going to be ahead of Melbourne. We're going to be ahead of probably Port Adelaide, the way they're going as well. St Kilda's showing some signs, nothing too super. But look, it is what it is. So, guys, as well, if you want to, just send in some questions. I will pop them up, and then everybody can join in and give their comments as well on how they feel. Or just ask me a question. I'm happy to stop talking about what I'm doing right now, and talk about something else as well. I'm always willing to do different things. Trying to think of who else really played a good game. James Josias seems to be building up some good form, consistency as well, which is good. I think he's going to have to be that long-term wingman player. I'm not sure who's going to be playing the wing role much these days. I don't think Hugo is going to be that replacement, not because he's not a good player. I just don't think he has the defensive capability. Dean Prestia, not the greatest game. Also not the worst game ever. A lot of behinds there. If you can even count, Hopper had one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 points out of our 11 behinds we kicked. If you actually go through the stats in front of us, we actually kicked 9 of them. So only 2 were rush behinds. The rest come off our own boot. It's a process we need to work on. Look, Harry Armstrong, it's a bit of a very limited time. So Harry Armstrong kicked 1 goal, 4 disposals, 2 marks, only 38 meters game, so 36 meters game, which isn't much, and 68% game time. So that's not too much. But you're not really surprised with that, considering he'd come back off such a serious injury. Now, I believe in other ways, next week, I believe Lynch is back. Tom Lynch will be, if I'm correct, I believe his suspension, this was his last week. Look, I might not be right, but I think he's back next week. I'm not sure who go. I think we all know who will be the ins and outs. I definitely think Jonty Fall obviously will be out, and then Lynch will come straight back in. It just depends on does that mean Taylor comes out and they put Noah back? Oh, it's hard to say. That sort of stuff. Who goes in, goes out for all the different players. I'm trying to find Taylor Young. He got 11 disposals, so he wasn't horrible. Game, I don't think. Did the defense? If anybody who watched, can you just let me know? I didn't get a chance to watch it because I'm in New South Wales and we had a big storm come through, so I lost all my power and I had no service. The service he was down as well, so I couldn't actually watch it. I was only around just getting a slight bit of service to check up the scores. How did the defense play? Did the defense hold up for quite some time, and then afterwards they just couldn't keep with it anymore and just got blown away? Which, if it is, wouldn't surprise me. But it was good to see Seth Campbell back. Fortunately, he didn't get any goals. I did like that. I did see and hear that he had got centre bounce clearances or centre bounce attendances. So that was one thing I was quite happy about. That with Tim Taranto out, it's made Uze have to make adjustments. But going into next year, I really think the club needs to work with the centre bounce. It balance them out a lot more. To me, it's putting a lot of pressure on Hopper and Taranto to be our key guys to only do the centre bounce 90% of the time. Now, it's a different story because next year we're all hoping that we will see a Smiley and a Lawler both playing in the seniors. So there's a good chance that they'll get some midfield time, which can totally change how our forward line, how our midfield will be. But just have to see how that goes going into next year. Yeah, look, it's probably really only some of the players I've really mentioned that had a couple of good games. Besides that, there really wasn't many standouts for it. I think all around it was just what's the word? A down game. It's like a lull. I don't know what happened. I couldn't explain it. I know I haven't had a chance to watch Ooz's press conference, but I am, one thing I will have to admit with some people, I'm not a fan of the coach constantly saying it wasn't at the AFL level. And to my reviews, no shit. You kicked 2 goals 11. To me, it's concerning that if this has been 4 or 5 games this year where we have been blown out, and he's used the catchphrase, not at AFL standard. He needs to be responded with no shit. What's the problem? Why are we not at AFL standard? If that's what you're saying, we're not. I have just really frustrated me, which makes it really hard to discuss because there's not many positives out of it. It's mostly just negatives, and I don't like just talking about the negatives all the time. So it's hard to work out what to do and where we go for it. So what are we looking? I'll ask you guys So who do we have? Does anyone know who do we have next week? I'm trying to everybody remember. Is it North Melbourne? No, sorry, I think it's St Kilda. So we've got Saints at the MCG next week. Give me your ins and outs, and what do you think we need to improve on going into next week's game against the Saints? Now, they've just come off a win against North Melbourne, so that gives them 2 in a row. They'll probably be going in thinking they're going to go and get 3 in a row up against us. I really hope we put up a better fight than we did this week against Gold Coast. Is Richmond versus St Kilda a danger game for St Kilda? Could Saints be going in cocky head, or are they going to have their usual the wood over us, which they've seemed to have over us over the last 5 or 6 years? I really think Saints and North Melbourne over the last few years just have always seemed to have that wood over us. We always win. When we used to have it with Brisbane, no matter where Brisbane was on the ladder, where we're on the ladder, it felt like for a good 5-10 years we just had the wood over Brisbane, and we always won. So yeah, it's going to be a good one next week against Saints. I really think, if we're not going to tag Matt Rao or Nick Dacos, Jack Ross is going to have to try and do a job on Naz, because Naz was sign Wangani Miller, is that how you say it? He's going to go off against us. He'll do what he did with Melbourne if we don't put a tag on. So I definitely think Ooze definitely needs to go into the game against Saints with a plan. I know he still wants to develop his system, which he said multiple times. That's why he didn't do a tag against Collingwood. He's still trying to develop our program, the way we play for 4 quarters. But I think if we could take away Naz from the Saints, then we are all for a chance to win. Hopefully, up against the Saints, we will have Tom Lynch back, as well as Tim Taranto. But besides those guys, I don't think anybody else can come back really in. Most of the players who play on the weekend in the VFL, Jacob Blight, Josh Gibkiss, and I don't see those 2 boys coming in unless they had a plan to take out a Sims, because Sims has had an... I like Sims as a player. I think he's definitely going to be a key part for our future. But for that out, I definitely can see the idea of a Sims out, a Jacob Blight in, just because Jacob Blight can play forward and he can play pinch hit ruck. He's been doing it quite a fair bit in the VFL since Oliver Hayes-Brown went out with an injury. So I wouldn't be against giving Sims a rest, because if we look at Sims' stats yesterday against Gold Coast, 3 disposals. And they all were kicks. Yeah, I know he had three marks, 2 tackles, and 2 hitouts, 91 meters gain. But I think it's a burning spot which someone else could come in right now. I definitely think Jacob Blight would do worlds of wonder for Toby Nankervis, because Toby Nankervis on the weekend, I think in that statistics for the game against Gold Coast, we got dominated. And that's another one we probably have a discussion about as well. Our clearance work, it's crazy to considering, if you think about it, what it was at round 5 or 6 when we versed Gold Coast. We actually won that statistic in the clearance work in all categories of it. And this week they obliterated us. Now, is that because of how good Witz is a ruckman, and how well Jared Witz has got the players with your Matt Rao, your Anderson, Took Miller. I don't know who else ran for their midfield this week. Have they just worked out how the tap where it's going to go to be better? Or is it that Nank's not doing his tap work right with our midfield? Or is our midfield not connecting with Nank where Nank wants to put the ball and going from there? But that was a concern for me coming into this game, that Toby, you could definitely see that the midfield for them is their bee's knee. They bet Brisbane the week before with their midfield work, Anderson and Rao. You should have known that was going to come, and then they did it against Collingwood week before. I know they died off at half time, but it was definitely a concern that something as a club we should have known was coming. And why didn't we pay more attention to that midfield work? I definitely think we need to solve that problem now, short term, and work out a long-term goal going into next year with Nank, with the midfields, because it's a weakness. Same as our goal kicking, it's starting to rear its head again. Obviously, the last couple of weeks, Collingwood, we showed really good signs. We hung out with them for a while. They had one really good quarter, and we just got blown away. West Coast, once we tagged out Harley Reid, West Coast had no answer for our midfield. Essendon it's hard to really call what that was. But we've got to work out that midfield for 1,000%, because it's just losing too much. You're not going to win a game. We're not going to win any more games this year or next year, in my opinion, if we keep losing in the clearance work in the ground and around the ground, because we are, I think, as I recall, we are ranked dead last in our centre clearance work, around the ground clearance work, hit outs like that. Those stats that really win you games. And we look at Gold Coast. Gold Coast are now pushing for a top 4 side. Look how good their midfield is. Probably up there with one of the best midfields in the comp. It's something we need to definitely improve on as well. So it's a concern. Hopefully we see some sort of signs going into next week as well. But all right, that's probably running out of things to discuss. Just because it was such a rough game. If you guys want to put anything in the comments below that you want to chat about, if we don't get too much, I'll probably just jump off. It's hard to do a good review on most of what happened. What's widescreen TV, Shane? What do you think are the ideal type of midfield we need once we finish the rebuild? Like one defense, yeah. One defense, one general, one clearance, yes. Well, with the midfield type of player that I would have really liked to go for was a Matt Rao type. So if you know much, I did a video on Matt Rao on why I think we should try and get him. Obviously, before he had signed his new, I think it's a 2-year deal with the Suns, was because Matt Rao, was elite clearance player with the speed, and he also had the defense. So he was an elite clearance worker, and he was also an elite tackler. So you need to find it's really hard to find a midfield player right now that has the defensive capability, the clearance work. Well, with the clearance work, you've probably already got that. Josh Smiley's, well, it's hard to say. We don't know what he's going to be right now, but Josh Smiley is known for his clearance work because he's 195 centimeters, probably 100 and something plus kilo, well, close to 100 kilos of pure muscle. And he's known for what he was drafted for was as a good clearance player. He's that player that gets his head down, picks the ball up, shrugs, and throws it away. I don't know about the defensive part. The general, I think, is your Tim Taranto. Where he's that good leader, talks the speed. You have that in Taj Houghton, in Seth Campbell, which both could definitely do it. But, you meaning in the draft? Sorry, is that what you mean? That sounds like it could be Sharp in this year's draft. Yeah. Sharp has got a real good burst of speed in that midfield. But my concern is he is very similar to Hopper and Taranto. You know, he's got a couple of good 3 or 4 steps, but he's not that type of player like Shane Edwards. I'm trying to think who used to run through our midfield as well. Kane Lambert, like the high endurance runner. Like Dusty, for all of his flaws defensively, his offensive pace was insane. Like, I think we all kind of forget how fast Dusty really actually was and powerful. Look, if a midfield type player you could get in this year's draft, you look at Will Dersma, as much as most people have that trigger with the Dersma names. Dersma could be that player in this year's draft, midfield player. Now, he is technically classified as a midfield/utility because you can play him forward, you can play him back, you can play him wing. But he's 191 centimeters. He is a burst of speed. But I'm more looking for, if I could go off to fix our midfield clearance sort of work, I definitely think you need to find a player that's an outside player, because Taranto and Hopper, which are going to be with us, I think they've both got at least 3 years or 4 years left on their contract. They're both the players that put their head down, get the ball and handball it out. You need to have that player on the outside that gets the ball, is an elite kick with speed as well, but also is willing to roam around to tackle. So Noah Anderson would be one. You look at Noah Anderson, got real good burst of speed. He seems to read the drop of the ball really well, but he doesn't go in and get the ball. He lets Rao go in and get the ball, or Took Miller go in to get the ball and handball out to him. Then he runs off, dashes it. He can run forward and kick a goal, or he delivers it to King. Is it King? Yeah. King over in the forward line, or a Jed Walter. That's definitely the archetype type of player you would love to have. Look, Harley Reid is as much as people know about his contract, is $20-something million. He is that player, like Sam Lawler is as well, because Sam Lawler loves a tackle. Like, really, technically, the prototype of like what when widescreen TV is saying is in our team already. Like, if you look at Sam Lawler, loves a tackle. He's got a really good leadership qualities about him. He does have the clearance. Not speedy, but he has a burst of speed where he can get away, similar to what Dusty does, and get the ball, and a very good kick as well, as we all know. So the player technically is there, but you can't just rely on him to do it at all time, especially considering we're not sure if his hamstring is going to be perfect straight away. I think I'm going to give him another year playing half forward to give him that chance. Yeah, that's how I would see it as well. I think Law will play the similar role to Cam Rayner. Yeah, Cam Rayner, I think he's like something like 60-40. But I think Law is a lot, I'm not sure on the height, but I think Law is actually taller than Cam Rayner as well. So if you want to quickly look that up, it'd be great. But I think he's taller, which plays a different part of how Cam Rayner plays. But yeah, like if you think about it, really, Cam Rayner and Lawler are the same archetype. The way they play. They both like to get up in the air and mark. Both are very powerful. Both very good in goal, but they both can play midfield. I just think maybe Lawler can run a lot longer, a lot harder than Cam Rayner can. Cam Rayner seems that he needs to have that break in the midfield, and I really thought by now Cam Rayner, from considering what he was drafted as, which was a lot of hype put on Cam Rayner. He was meant to be that next Dustin Martin player. But I definitely think he should have taken. Like what he should be really where Noah Anderson is. He should be where Nick Dacos is. Nasai Wanganeen Miller. Like he should be in that top elite category for the player that he is. Oh yeah. So it's not as much tall as I thought he would be. Yeah, only a centimeter taller. Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. I really thought he looked a bit shorter on TV compared to what Lawler does as well. So yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a good one. Good question to find. I just with Dyson Sharp, man, I really have the concerns of the South Australia go home factor. But if you could pick, if it was a trade, who would you guys want to trade for? If it was me, Zach Butters. Zach Butters would be the perfect archetype of a midfielder. I think if we think about what did you say there, Paul? I think that we need a cheap, tallish, experienced forward. Yeah, look, I do agree. I did have that theory a couple of weeks ago when I heard that. Now, hear me out. Jake Malsham was being reported that he wasn't going to. Melbourne hadn't offered him a new contract. To me, Jake Malsham would be a really good type of player to have. Where, yeah, I think he's 33, so he's got maybe a year to left into him. Now, you wouldn't have to guarantee him a 2-year contract. What you could do is give him a 1 year and then have a trigger for a second year. But if you look at him, what he is, he generally kicks a goal a game, or he'll kick a couple of goals here and there. And that would be great to have. He can teach the young forwards as well. He wouldn't cost that much. He's a unrestricted free agent, so you just sign him up. You probably only have to pay him $300,000 a year. And he's there for 2 years. He fills that void because Lynch will eventually probably retire. I think Lynch is done at the end of next year. So I think next year you will have no Broad and you'll have no Tom Lynch. So then you could really have Jake Malsham around for 1 more year after, and hopefully by that time, your Sims, your Harry Armstrong, your Jonty Fall, Liam Fawcett, those boys might have developed to start showing the foundations. Ryan Mansell will have more games into him. Seth Campbell will have more games. You Tash Hot, and you get more a bit more better. I think we have enough. I do think we have enough mids. It's just the quality of mids. Do we have the right quality? Like, who do we? You could look. We're not seeing much some of our young players because they showed some signs and then they've got hurt. Kane McCauliffe showed some real good signs as a midfielder, but he went down. Did a hamstring, I think, or a calf. Jack Ross is showing signs. Sam Lawler shows signs in the midfield. We just who to me, what for your that point of view is who's behind. Who's the next replacement for Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper, which is what you do need to have. Yeah, like Butters can't break a tag, or is that with the Butters not breaking a tag? Is that him, or is it the club's Port Adelaide not finding a way to help him break the tag? Like Dusty used to get tagged, so did Trent Codgins. Trent Codgins used to get tagged as well, but are Port Adelaide at the stage of knowing to put a block on, switch players? That sort of stuff. Which they used to do with Dusty, that used to try and force the switch on a different player. Or Dusty used to make himself go a different spot to take away that player's position. I really think right now Port Adelaide is just a team just full of selfish players. They're all trying to get themselves that next contract, and it's not looking good. And a lot of people have said that they reckon Butters will go, whether it's this year or next year. If Ken goes and Ken goes somewhere else, goes to a Victorian club, as a football director or a football manager. And look, I'm definitely for Richmond. I would not be against having Ken in that background to help out Uze. It's a seasoned veteran coach who's played in high games or finals, who's managed players quite a fair bit. I'm all for having that person in the background to help out. Like Gale was in the background for freaking 15 years. I think it was 13 or 14 years as the backup senior person who's been in the AFL system for a long time. That was Harvick's backup. So you imagine if Uze had Ken as his backup, and that's a selling point to get Butters over. I'm all for it. Brody Myercheck, yeah, I definitely do agree. I'd love to get Brody Myercheck across. But is he going to want to go backwards? If you know what I mean. Like Collingwood's competing for grand finals. So I think they're going to be up there for the next 5 years. Does he want to? Is he really doing the sacrifice for money, or does he want success? Look, I would be all for it. I wouldn't be against it because he's going to be like really once Lynch goes, Myercheck can really own that forward line and just teach all the other players around it. Really only offered a 1 year deal. Myercheck is upset. Only been offered a 1 year. Oh, fuck that. I'll give him. How old is he? Can you tell me? Like if he's not that old, like why wouldn't you offer him a 2 year with? Now this is where I think the AFL needs to go. Player options and team options, like follow sort of what the contracts are for the NBA. Like Harley Reid wants to do a trigger for like 2 years and then 9 years plus. I am all for that as a system of doing. Hey, Myercheck will give you 3 years with a team offer, a team side. The team can pick on your 3rd year. Do we think say 32? Yeah, I would give him a 2 year. Like he's a forward. Like forwards tend to go to 35. So you really could give him a 3 year deal, and then that 3rd year is a team option. So like, do you want to put in 2 years, $600,000, and go from there? And I'm also not against going after Jack Silvagni from Carlton. I think Jack Silvagni's 27. They're only offering him about $600,000 for 4 years, so you get Jack Silvagni until he's about 31. Jack Silvagni, to me, if I could pick a player right now to come into our side, Jack Silvagni would be a great replacement for Nathan Broad as a key defender. So, yeah, look, I think it'd be a great. I really think Ken Hinkley being a part of the coaching department will be a giant boost for Adam Uze. And that's what we need. Like, you need to put support around him. I think that's the flaw that North Melbourne has. They spent all their money on Alistair Clarkson, and now they don't have enough money in their soft cap to afford anybody around him to support him with better staff. So, they had to go out and you get a lot cheaper staff to try and fill that void. So I'm all for. I think Ken would be a great, not CEO, maybe like a director that's in the background that helps Ooze around. And I think he would. And I think it would be a good selling point for some of your Port Adelaide players that want to leave and go to a different club to help out. Who the heck hit my door? Go see Mum. I'm on the video. Go see Mum. Sorry, guys. That was just my daughter jumping in. Now, do you agree on Brody Myercheck or the Silvagni or the Ken Hinkley one? Sorry. Not sure which one you agree on there. You have to let me know. Trying to think. Another midfield. Another defence. My concern is defence will fall off eventually. Oh, all three. Yeah, like I think the Silvagni will have. I think the Silvagni would be maybe how injury prone he is, but like he would bring in for the positives of Silvagni, he would bring in quite a fair bit of leadership, not leadership, but experience, as in games played. But he's also got his dad and his grandfather that all played AFL, so he's got that voice around him as well. He would come into a club that would appreciate him. On a bigger club than Carlton, I think, really, honestly. But I think that he's been offered, I think it's the same amount of money at Collingwood to go. So it's hard to say. Yeah, Hayden, I do agree. Some of our younger players are looking tired, so I think we should rest Trainer. Bring Gibcus in against the Saints. Yeah, well, what's he's played? Gibcus has played, I think it's now 3 games back. And he's showing good signs of it. I don't think a Luke Trainer does a lot wrong. I think it's just that he's probably So I thought Luke Trainer was going to be the sub because that's what they were planning to do with him last week, and I really thought they would have made him the sub this week to give him that breather. Which surprisingly they didn't give him the breather because they had said last week they wanted to do it. But yeah, look, it's not a bad in and out, and very similar architect of players if you think about it. They're both very good interceptive markers, both very good kicks, and they've both got a really good vertical leap as well. Look, I wouldn't be against it, but I just wonder if you do that, is Josh Gipkus going to be able to handle the amount of time that he plays? Because for all the flaws we have had, people were saying it had tight ears. If you look at Luke Trainer on the sheet there, he had spent 92% time on ground. So 14 disposals. He's still averaging over, I think his average is now close to 16 disposals per game. And he's still spending a lot of time on ground. I just don't know if Luke Trainer would have that amount of energy in him. But at the same time, Broad was out with an illness. So I also wouldn't be against Broad in, Luke Trainer out as well. So definitely a possibility. What's this one? Surprisingly, top 8 sides are looking at one of our top players in a trade. Who do you think it is? Well, I haven't heard a name. But on the Big Talker Footy Cast, there had been reports about Jacob Hopper. And I think it was Collingwood were going after Jacob Hopper. And the talk would be that it would allow Hopper to go to a finaling, like a top 8 team to compete for finals. We would lose not we're losing the trade, but technically what we paid to get Hopper isn't what we're going to get back. So technically you take a hit. It's like buying a brand new car. You buy the car, you pay the high price for it, and when you drive it out of the lot, you lose $5,000 straight away. So I think that's what some of the reporting was from there. I think Collingwood do need to find another midfield. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if it's Collingwood knocking on the door. Collingwood seems to be knocking on everyone's door for our midfield players. Now I know I've had a few people tell me that now whether it's their opinion or what they've heard, but they said they wouldn't be surprised if the D's went after Tom Lynch, just because for some reason D's neglect getting themselves a proper tall forward. Pretty much since Brown, they had Brown, but prior to that, they haven't had a proper real key forward, which is why I was very surprised they didn't draft Harry Armstrong, because a lot of their forwards aren't super tall or not coming along to what they would want. What would I want for Hopper? Well, it depends on what they want, what they're going to give up. I would take like a Brody Myercheck in the deal, and maybe a second round, and maybe a second round pick and a future 3rd and 4th. And it might not seem like much to Collingwood, but to us, it would be, for me, it's a way to, you would take Hopper out. My goal would be, a Smiley or a Lawler or something like that to look like into that spot. Look, I don't think they give up first. I really don't. Like, the only way they would do it is maybe if we gave them a second round pick back. A future first, I'd be happy for, just because this year's draft is just so father-son, NGA and academy full. So I'm not for the first of this year. But yeah, look, I'd love to get a first, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was Brody Myercheck wants to go. We'll take Brody Myercheck. We'll give him a 2 to 3 year contract. That fixes to me. It helps Lynch out with the forward, then helps the future when Lynch retires. Maybe a second round pick for this year that allows us to get Lewis Callaway, and then a 3rd or a 4th round pick, or both 3rd and 4th round for next year, which we will need to have for father-son. I think we've got 2 father and sons, an NGA and an academy player next year. So it doesn't have to benefit us for this year's draft. It could benefit us for the next year draft, which we have a lot of non open market players coming in. It's the ones that we're tied to already now, and then ones that are showing real good signs that we could have. I think Dufty was one of them. Yeah, I know Mitch and John reported that Lynch will sign an extension soon. I think but that was reported like months ago. That was before his suspension. And I don't think he'll go anywhere. I think Lynch just wants to retire at Richmond. I think Tom Lynch, he was just what people had said to me that's what they think Melbourne should do. Whether Melbourne would take the action and actually go after him because they really do need it. Van Ruin, I think if they say it, over at the D's. He's a young, key, tall forward that is just struggling right now. And it is the same thing with what I'm saying about our forwards now. You need Jonty Full, Tom Sims, Harry Armstrong, Liam Fawcett. These guys need Tom Lynch to teach them the patterns to run and how to mark, other ways of tricks around what their forward craft is. If you guys remember when we got Tom Lynch, when he came over here, they asked, what was a big key factor of coming? Like he said, competing for a grand final. That's all good, but he wanted to play with Jack Riewoldt because he's never had a senior forward with him to teach him on how to do things. Alex Rance also said it. He was really underdeveloped for what he thought he should be. That was obviously signs of how good Tom Lynch was, but he wasn't there like where he should be at that stage of his career. He didn't have a key forward to pass on the knowledge of what he had, where Jack had Matthew Richardson, Now he eventually got Jack Riewoldt, maybe a little bit too late for him, but now Tom Lynch is doing the same thing for us. So which is why I think Melbourne would want to get Tom Lynch over there to teach Van Ruin and a couple of the other boys on how to do it. Whether they do it or not is a different conversation. But I don't think Richmond would let him go. I think he's too valuable at Richmond. It's the same question. Do you guys want Dion Prestia to go for another year? Do we want Dion to stay on another year as a player to teach these young guys on how to be a midfield, or is it time for Dion Prestia to retire, go into his coaching because we know he wants to be a coach? So go into your coaching role and allow another young player to come up and start playing more midfield time. And look, don't get me wrong, I am very surprised. I'm not sure. I can't remember what round that he's come back, but Dion Prestia, since he's been back, has been firing on all cylinders. It's really good to have. But the question is, do we need to let him go so we can get another young key midfielder in there, like a Taj Houghton, Sam Lawler, Josh Smiley, like Kane McAuliffe, Tyler Sonsie. Like Sonsie had a quiet game this week. Don't blame him. It wasn't just him. So I'm not going to bash on Tyler Sonsie after having one bad game. But yeah. Look, I think the fitness does matter. But I think if it was up to me, I would shut all three of them down right now. You'd be like, hey, Smiley, which was meant to have been playing for this week against Gold Coast, is what they were trying to do. Obviously, he's not got up to what they want him to. I don't know whether he's injured and they're just using the conditioning as an excuse. I don't know. I thought by now his fitness would be high enough to play. I would like to see them both be shut down. All three of them get them ready for a big preseason, as in like a proper preseason uninterrupted. So hopefully this year we don't see Sam Lawler get his jaw broken, so he can get a full preseason in. Smiley doesn't hurt his hamstring during training as well. And McCain McAuliffe, I think he hurt his hamstring as well again. So do we give Serple a bigger block of period to get him trained? And look, Smiley's a different kettle of fish. Like, if you guys remember, Bont in his first year he was hyped up to, like, I remember he was like a really hyped player, but they didn't thrush him into it because his body was so hard for him to develop, going from VFL to under 18s to AFL. It's a big jump for his body style. And Patrick Cripps was the exact same thing. These guys are 195 plus midfielders who need to have that high speed and dash, more body, more ground and pound in them. So I think next year we'll see the best of Smiley because he's had that 1 year to get his body, get used to the AFL rigours and the lifestyle, what you got to do. And I wouldn't be surprised if next year comes in and wins next year's Rising Star because he will be eligible for a Rising Star next year. because he hasn't played enough games. And I also believe Sam Lawler will be eligible to get an Rising Star again next year. So we'll nearly. I think the only ones who won't be able to do it will probably be Sims and Luke Trainer. I think they've played too many games. I think you can't play any more than 11 games, I think it is, or be older than 21. So, do I think Houghton is a midfielder or is he a high half forward? I think he's both. I think he's going to be Shane, like either going to play him like Shai Bolton and Shane Edwards, where he will do some midfield duties and then do some forward duties as well. I just think he's got that archetype of the top of a player that he can go in the midfield. Like, he doesn't have to do it all the time. There might be a game where he's just on fire and he's playing really good in the forward line, kicking goals, creating goals. So you don't take him out of it. Then it's probably he's having real good games where he is, he's in the midfield and he's, destroying the midfield with his clearance work, his high footwork and speed. So you leave him in there. And I'm not definitely all for that as well. I definitely think he's both. That's my opinion. I don't know about what do you think, man? You think he's going to be both or one or the other? What do you reckon? Dion as a depth and player coach. So player coach, do you mean like what we did with Steve Morris where he was in the VFL and was a player coach, or you mean he's in like he plays in the AFL still, but if he's not playing seniors, he's playing in the VFL and helping coach down there. Like I know they did it with. I don't know if they did it with Caleb at the end of the year, but that's what I would like for them to do with McIntosh. I don't think McIntosh will just bring such a good experience as well. Like at the end of the year, if you think about it, you've got to release 3 people. Does McIntosh get another year as well? Like we're giving Prestia, we know we're giving Lynch another year. That's been reported that Lynch will get one more year. There hasn't been any reports out that Dion Prestia is getting another year, and there hasn't been any reports that McIntosh is getting another year. Now, in my personal opinion, I don't think he will. Just considering this year they made him wait until like after the draft, and they said they'll work that out after the draft and prioritize what they need to do. And I really, if it was up to me, I would like to keep McIntosh around. I know it's a chance of blocking another player from getting in games, but you don't play him in the AFL. You play him in the VFL. If players are injured and form permits, he comes in. I just think he's a great character to have around the ground. I think he's a really good guy. I think he seems to be that aura guy around the club where it keeps everybody happy. Everyone seems to enjoy themselves and makes people want to be at the club and makes the club feel like a brighter and warmer place. Yeah, that's my idea, Paul, with Prestia and McIntosh is what I would say. Plays mostly VFL, but they come into the AFL if players are injured. And whilst they're in the VFL, like if you've got Smiley and all that sort of guys down there, he's playing VFL and coaching whilst he's on the ground, and it gives him a chance. And look, all reports is that Dion Prestia, when he was hurt, he was really grabbing players like Smiley and Lawler and Kane McAuliffe and showing them video footage on things to do and what not to do and all that sort of stuff. So it's all really good sort of stuff. But all right, I think we'll call that a night, guys. It's been about over an hour. And I think there wasn't much more to talk about the game. I think now we're just having some fun and theorising on things that we want to see the club do. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's jumped on, who's commented, who's liked, even if you just watched. I really do appreciate this stuff, guys. I don't do this for money. I just do this for fun. I really do enjoy talking to people and getting their opinions on our beloved Tigers. Hopefully next week we get a win. And hopefully next week we'll have Taranto abroad and Lynch back as well. And, we show something better next week than we did this week. Because obviously we're looking for small signs and small improvements. So I will leave the video as I do on all my videos. Go Tigers and stay safe.